All right, folks, welcome back again inside the Journeymen Boxing Studios, another edition of Double Jab Radio. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones, and do not forget to follow us online, journeymanboxing.com, also on Twitter, RichQ1Q. We had a good conversation with Dan Doyle, president of the New Jersey Golden Glove, so we added a lot of amateur features up on the website as well as content, and we also made mention that I thought it was a really big day for the women's boxing in the USA Boxing, the Elite, because they got some big wins, and we talked a lot about it earlier in the week. And if you're not really following it, two more Americans were victorious at the Stranja tournament in Sofia, Bulgaria, Virginia Fitch, and also the great Christina Cruz out of Hell's Kitchen in New York. They took home a couple wins today. Unfortunately, lightweight Michaela Meyer and also Tika Hemingway, who were really up against very good fighters, lost. So that'll continue later on in the week. Remember now, it's just a couple-day tournament, so we're going to stick with the theme of female boxing, and we welcome back a good friend of the show. She is the original $1 million baby. That, of course, is Maureen Shea. She's going to talk a little female boxing with us. And Maureen, it's always good to catch up with you and touch base, and I'll tell you what, we've got some big-time female bouts on the docket in the next couple weeks.
Oh, yeah, it's great. I'm really excited. You know, there's so much going on. It's nice to see, you know, us making some noise. And we've always been making the noise, but, you know, we got to, unfortunately, travel across seas to do that. But, you know, we're still doing it. We're still here fighting.
Well, you are certainly doing it. We'll get into what you're doing right now. Of course, the number one IBF challenger, 122. We'll talk about that. We also know that you had that impressive win, ultimately jettison you with that over Angel Gladney, who we're going to talk about in a moment, who's fighting for a title. But I want to get to what's going on in Mexico this weekend, because there's several titles on the line, and I believe, you know, when you have a couple titles on the line in a main event, that's always great, and we're going to see it. It's going to be Jackie Nava taking on Mara Arajana Gomez for the WBA and WBC World Female Super Bantamweight title. And, you know, Nava is an interesting story because she took off a year or so when she gave birth to a child, and then came back and just absolutely destroyed Sanchez in 2014. So she's had 3 wins, but she's also a very smart fighter. She's a veteran in the ring, as you know, has well over 30-something odd fights. And, you know, I think this is a tough test. I think this is a tough test for Gomez. What does she need to do to try to pull off the upset here?
You know, I got to bring it back to the Alicia Ashley fight.
Yes.
And it's not because, you know, I know Jackie. You know, I have a relationship with her husband and works in my corner. I think Jackie is a very good fighter. Much respect to her. But, you know, that fight with Alicia Ashley, I just, that was a tough one to see. And to see, because I thought Alicia did a lot of good things. And, you know, if it's not to say, if you're going to stand in front of Jackie, you better have the power to hurt her. But if otherwise, you better know how to box, know how to counter. She's tough. She comes forward. You know, I think countering using angles. Alicia isn't a big puncher, but she's a very, very elusive, very good slick boxer, which is her nickname, Slick Ashley, for that reason. I think Alicia probably had one of the best fight plans going into that fight to beat Jack. And a lot of people think that she did beat Jack.
Yeah, it was, very close fight.
It was, you know, so I think if you're not, you know, I understand that a lot of the time they look for, you know, the backing up, and people think sometimes that just because you're backing a fighter up, that they're, you know, they're scary or hurting them. Where, you know, if you look at the Lara fight, you know, that was when you fought Cotto. Mm-hmm. That was the last one, right? Not Canelo. Was it Canelo? No, Cotto, right?
Yeah, it's Lara. You're talking about when, as far as from a defensive standpoint in that type of fight.
Yeah, his style. But, you know, I think he could have done more.
Yeah.
You know, but that kind of a style with the counter punching, the movement and the counter punching. People say Floyd runs. Floyd is slick. He's accurate.
Right.
He uses the ring. So that kind of a style is a very, very tough style. That's the style you want to bring to a Jackie Nava, because she comes forward.
Yeah, and
not a boxer per se.
Yeah, and again, just to reiterate, you're talking about when he lost the split decision. That was against Alvarez. Came back and beat Ishii Smith for the WBA title. Yep. And
then I don't know why I thought it was Cotto. Yeah, when he where it was, you know, I mean, I didn't think he did enough in that fight.
Right, a lot of people don't. Yeah.
But he didn't counter. He he didn't capitalize on the opportunities that he had with that movement. He didn't capitalize. You've got to capitalize. What Gomez, who was fighting Jackie Nava, what she needs to do is, if she's going to have that movement, I haven't seen video on her, but if she has that movement, she needs to capitalize. That's what Alicia was doing. If she was smart, she would study Alicia Ashley tape.
Here's the one.
What Alicia did and how Alicia caught her.
Here's the one thing I'll take away from Gomez, and it kind of it tells me a little bit about her. I mean, look, she doesn't have a lot of punching power. I don't know what kind of power she possesses. Yeah, she's had a couple knockouts, but the fact that she's came back and she's fought Carolina Gutierrez twice. Now, again, I thought that first fight was close. The second fight, to me, was close. Those were both split decision wins. So when I look at a fighter like that, and I look at a fighter that a lot of these fights go to the scorecard, even against lesser opponents, A, she's a grinder, but maybe she's going to have a hard time finishing. I don't see her knocking out Jackie at all. And I think it's close. Then Jackie has that, A, she's got more fights under her belt. She's got the ring generalship. She's 34 years of age, so she has that veteran pedigree, that mature. Yep, exactly. And I think that's going to pose well. I can see this fight going to the scorecards, but I can certainly see Jackie doing more than enough to win.
Yeah, no, either way, you never know. That's the thing in boxing. So what I like to see when there's fights like this with this type of opposition with veterans like Jackie, I like to see what these girls bring to the table, what these opponents bring to the table to kind of, what these challengers bring to the table. What do they think they have that's different? Kind of like the Mayweather fight. I mean, what's Pacquiao going to do to beat Mayweather that nobody else could have done?
Right.
It's fun to see. It's really like a science experiment. And that's why it's called the street science, because they got to figure it out.
I think the co-main event on that card this weekend is going to be a dandy. Kenya Enriquez taking on Melissa Mighty McMorrow for the WBO World Female Flyweight title. And the funny thing is, I spoke to Melissa earlier this week, and the one thing I asked her is, listen, you don't have a lot of luck fighting in Mexico. She's fought there 3 times. She's lost 3, you can argue, very questionable, controversial bouts. But again, Enriquez doesn't have a lot of power behind her punches, and look, Melissa's not a knockout artist by no stretch of the imagination, but the fact of the matter is the level of opponents, the fact that she can get in, get out, she can, and also, Maureen, too, the fact that I think she's going to fight up close. She's going to keep this kind of in a phone booth because, again, there's no threat. Yeah, there's no threat by Enriquez. Now, my 2 questions to you is, A, handicap this fight for me, and the second thing is, should she be, Melissa, that is, be wary again to know that this fight is in Mexico, and is at times you're fighting in someone's backyard, the scoring could be a little off, it could be a little it just can be a little, it can get a fact where a fighter can get screwed.
I met when I went out to the first women's convention in Cancun, the WBC women's convention. It was so cool. I got to meet Melissa, not just in the meetings and stuff, but I got to hang out with her by the beach. We were just laying out, talking about her career, my career, things we've been through. She was asking me for some advice. She's hungry. She wants it. I have such a huge amount of respect for her. When she came to me, talking to me, she was like, "What do you think?" Like, she's out there asking the questions, trying to figure it out. And she's taking these fights because, what else is she gonna? She's got to go out there. She wants to get up there. She's got to go out there and take these kinds of fights. So, every fighter's journey is different. This happens to be hers. Where she's going with it, I think does she have a chance? Absolutely. Experience. Again, it's kind of like a Jackie Nava. Melissa's been in there with some really good, tough fighters. She had Mariana Juarez. She's been in there. She's gone. Consistent. She's done what she has to do. And I've seen her. The determination, she just doesn't, she's like, no, I'm going to do what I got to do. Any way I can do it. And, what I think is her, when she leaves the ring, she knows what she did. That's a big thing, I think, with fighters in general. And I feel the same way. So it's like, okay, I'm my worst critic. I'm my worst judge. So if I go in there and I give everything I got and I didn't win the decision, but I know I did everything I could do, I have to walk away and be okay with that. Yeah. Because it's basically where she is at. She's fighting in Mexico, and it is difficult. There is, they had me, I fought in Mexico. It's great, let me tell you. It's great to fight there. The fans are amazing. I've always gotten treated impeccably by the promoters out there. Hector Garcia, fighting for him, fighting for Mayan Promotions. I fought with that there. They've always treated me well. And Melissa said the same thing. Never have they ever mistreated her or anything. The judging is a different story. Sometimes I wonder if it's a different style that they're used to seeing out there, to the table. And so they score it differently. But it's also, you know, you and I respect the judges, but each one of them sees something different in a different way from their perspective. So, you know, she's going to go out there. I mean, that's why they say, you know, you go out there, you got to knock them out if you're going to win.
Well, yeah, it brings up 2 points. I mean, first of all, listen. Not a lot of fighters can say they've had as much success as you had in fighting in Mexico. I mean, that's a fact, because I think you had 6 or 7 fights. You never lost, and I remember when you fought Diana Ayala. That was for the interim WBC title.
That fight in particular, I think did I win a split decision or a majority decision?
No, that was a majority decision. Yeah.
Yeah, but let me tell you something. You watched that fight. I shut her out. And I remember when they do the WBC rules has the scoring, open scoring. And so when we heard, me and my coach, Haas, we heard in the corner, I think it was after the 4th round, they were like, you know, one judge had it from her. I was like, really?
But that's my whole... Yeah, and that's my whole point, because when Melissa fought Musino, you know, she worked the body, had her up against the ropes. The majority of the fight kept the distance, kept at bay, but it was a good fight. And then you go back and you saw that was a split decision loss. And I'm just wondering if a fighter, when they know is coming over, has a reputation of having issues, mentally it can really disrupt the flow of what you're trying to do in the ring. And I'm wondering, because Enriquez basically is fighting in her backyard, if you know, the one thing I told Melissa, and I was more or less didn't tell her, it was a question that I said, listen, I would venture to guess you want to come out and be that banger boxer brawler that you could be early on, and you want to kind of rack up a couple rounds in your favor, because then it's a 10-round fight, 10-round title fight. If you give up a round or two, if you know you have a pretty good cushion, that should put you at ease, but you certainly don't want it to go to the scorecards. You don't want to give up that last minute flurry in a round.
Well, you know what happens? What do they say? Don't look for the knockout when it comes, because then you try to knock them out, and it happens. And that's the mental part of it. I think that's where going in there with that kind of pressure or that kind of mindset, you know, it's tough, because then you're like, you know, how do I, you know, I've stopped opponents, I've knocked out, you know, and dropped opponents with punches I didn't even throw hard. Yeah. I was like, oh, even if it's an Angel Petty, you know, for example, when I fought her, I threw a straight right left hook, she went right down. That was not a hard punch. I threw it just timing, button, and it just came out right. You know, and I didn't try to do that. I wasn't trying to knock her out. I was just doing what I had to do and keeping, you know, just, you know, punch output, I think, is a big part of it. Technique, staying technical, being smart, trying to find the opening, whether it's countering or whatever. But I think, you know, Melissa, it's going to be a little bit of a mental feat. I hope that she goes in there just doing her work, what she can do best, and not feeling like she's got to get the knockout. So once you put that pressure on yourself, you know, it doesn't usually happen that way.
It's a great point. Again, a couple minutes with Maureen Shea joining us inside the Journeymen Boxing Studios. Double Jab Radio. Rich Quinones here. Talking a little female boxing. Couple good title bouts this weekend. You mentioned Angel Gladney. Nice segue. She'll fight for the vacant UBF female super featherweight title against Jennifer Salinas. That's in Maryland. That's going to be March 3rd. There's 3 title fights on the line. But, you know, Angel is kind of an interesting character, because you might look at someone's record in boxing and think they have a lopsided record. They're not good. She's 8-10-1, but my goodness, she's fought you. She's fought Shelly Vincent. She fought Cindy Serrano. She fought Anna Julitan, Kalisha West. I think she also fought Trivellino a couple times. Ronica Jeffrey, who, you know, I think got a little exposed against Carla Torres, but that's another story for another day. But, you know, what does Angel bring to the table, and what does she need to defeat Jennifer Salinas? Because this is a rematch, and again, I don't know how much you personally take stock in rematches, because it's not uncommon in female boxing to fight someone 2, 3, even 4 times. But hey, what are her strengths, and what do you think she needs to do to defeat Salinas?
You know, it's funny. I know Jennifer too, Salinas as well. So, you know, I've seen Jennifer work. She was part of a reality show that I worked on 4 years ago now in Mexico. And you know, Jennifer's smart. She's strong. She's tough, and she's been in there too with Jackie Nava. I think twice she fought Jackie. She's been in there too. So I think it's going to be a really good fight. Angel, both of them have been tested against some really, you know, some top fighters. And you know, Angel, she's tough. She comes forward. She doesn't give up. Even after I stopped her, I know she didn't want to be stopped, but she was clearly hurt, in my opinion. I mean, I saw it, and I actually tried to talk to her after the fight. I said, it's not, but she's tough. She just comes to fight. She's smart. She's slick. She's crafty. I think that she comes to fight. She wasn't even, she's not intimidated. She's not intimidated at all by anybody. I mean, I was the weigh-ins, and I actually was laughing because she was like, really just like, I don't care who you are, I don't care what I'm here. And I'm like, wow, good for you. I'm like, yes, like, I like it. I'm like cheering for her while I'm fighting her. So I'm like, that's cool. I like that. Because I'm just confident in my abilities. I know what I can do, so I'm just like, cool, all right. But, yes, like, I like that. That's just women coming and giving everything they got. And, that's one thing that's just one of the things you're going to get from Angel. She comes, she doesn't back down, she's not intimidated, and she'll do the work. So I think it's going to be a really good fight. I haven't seen Jennifer fight in a long time. I know her fights with Jackie, and she's definitely game.
Right.
She's strong. She's got some good movement. She's got some good movement. I know she's fighting I haven't seen Jennifer fight at 122, but so depending, she was fighting I think at 126. I'm not quite sure. Maybe she was fighting 122, but she's strong. Actually, her and I have a very similar build. We were laughing about it. We're in Mexico together because we have the legs. And
Sure.
We're strong. She's pretty ripped. I know she stays in the gym. I know she stays up with her cardio. She works out. She lifts. So she takes care of her body, and she's got kids too. She's a mom and a wife. And, I give her a lot of credit. So there's one thing you can't question about either one of these girls is heart. They both have heart. They both have ability. So it's definitely going to be an explosive fight. And I say it'd be a hard one to pick who's going to win.
Does it, when you look at the fact that Angel comes in and she's dropped, I think, 3 in a row, suffered that knockout against you. So it's really going to be her first fight in about 8 or so months. I'm wondering that first time getting hit, how it's going to affect her. But prior to that, she's dropped 6 out of 7, 8 out of 9, I believe. And look, they're all high quality opponents. I know a lot of times people will, people will look at that, and does that make for a more dangerous fighter, or is that a fighter where you look at that, hey, if I can kind of push them a little bit and maybe break their will early on, and look, I'm not saying anyone's folding. I'm just saying it is boxing. You got to be real here.
No, I know. It depends on the person. What Angel did after the loss to me depends on what she did. What did she do? Did she go home and say, you know what, I'm never going to let this happen again? What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I prepared? Was I prepared? How can I be prepared better next time? Look at it. It's so true what they say. You learn more from a loss than a win.
Sure.
I learned a lot from my 2 losses. A lot. And things that I apply every time I go into a fight. I think about those losses. I'm not afraid of them. I don't deny them. I'm not the same person. Not only am I not the same person, I'm not the same fighter. Because I looked at those losses and I'm like, okay, what happened there that is the same now, or what did I change? And why do I want to go back there? Because there were times there too. I mean, for me it was experience and a bunch of other things, but it's what you do with those losses. So Angel, obviously, if she's dropped that many, 7 or 8, she's got to go back at some point and say, hey, what am I doing wrong? If she comes in, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Right.
She cannot go into this fight doing exactly what she did with me, exactly what she did with those other losses. She's got to think, okay, what the heck am I doing wrong? And, she came in a little bit heavy when she fought me. I don't know if she thought being the bigger girl was going to make a difference because I was coming down. I was fighting for the first time at 122. But I'm incredibly strong at 122. Obviously, I showed that. But, maybe she wasn't, I don't know if she wasn't up in her cardio or if she came in heavy. I don't know why.
Well, I think she's going to be in trouble, and I'm going to tell you why. I think she's going to be in trouble because the one thing about Jennifer is she's a very accurate puncher. She picks and chooses her spots. She connects. They're not glancing blows. And you can go back and you can look at some of the fights that Angel's had. If you go back, and again, I know Cindy Serrano's on another level, but go back to that fight. Serrano just peppered her, and Angel didn't throw. She didn't counter. I think she got overwhelmed a little bit in that fight, and she was just missing terribly. And I think when she comes up against a real accurate fighter and they're pushing her backwards a little bit, she's going to be in trouble.
I think you're right. And I think that, when I fought her, what I felt after I dropped her, when she came back, she kind of got a little reckless.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and when she was using the jab against me, it was not letting me in. I had to be a little bit more, you know, think a little bit more. But, you know, jabbing, straight punches, but the accuracy, not coming in and wailing and just, you know, trying to, it's almost like a Hail Mary. You know, just going in and hoping one lands.
Yeah.
You know, so hopefully, you know, she'll work on that and she'll come out and be a little bit more uniform or be a little bit more, you know, a little bit tighter with her combinations and with her punch output. But Jennifer is very accurate. Jennifer's also slick. Jennifer's got good movement. Jennifer knows how to box. So, and Angel, I've never seen Angel box. I see her come forward. You know, and so she was coming forward a lot on me too. And I was, you know, countering and stuff on her as well. But using defensive movement against somebody like her is, you know, it's a good plan.
Tori Nelson's going to be on that card as well, and Tori Nelson's an interesting story because she's 38 years of age and only had 16 fights, I should say, 13-0-3 under her belt. Possesses no knockout power, but she's a sound fighter. What's interesting to me is the fact that she's taken on Keita Watkins, and that's going to be for the vacant UBF female super welterweight title, and that's slated for 10 as well. The one thing about Tori Nelson is I look at some of her past fights, and I called the fight she had against Mia St. John, and this is no disrespect to a pioneer in female boxing and Mia St. John. Mia St. John did not want to be in that fight. There were issues prior to the fight with the ring, and she just was overwhelmed, and it was a good stoppage. But then she fought Nicole Woods, who's a very good fighter. Where I have an issue with Tori Nelson is the next two fights against Arlene Bleakow and Lucretia Meekum. These are opponents that 2-2, 3-12. Now, the 2-2 fight against Arlene, that was a split decision win, and that was a 10-rounder, and that should not have been that close. So I don't know if it's an issue where sometimes a fighter will just give another fighter fits, but to me, I think right now that she might be primed for the picking. And I think if there's a fighter to do it, it's Keita Watkins. And I know that Keita has a lopsided record as well, but she's a tough fighter from Texas.
You know, that's one thing, you know, that's the one thing about women's boxing. You cannot just look at the record.
Yes.
You really can't. And I know it's tough for just the avid boxing fans.
Agree.
You know, because of how the men have been, you know, raised and how they've been brought up with these undefeated and, you know, but that's what I love about the UFC. I don't know if that word's banned from your show, but I'm a fan of the UFC.
It's okay.
I love, and especially the women, I love that the women have these records where you're like, it doesn't matter, it's a good fight. And there's always opportunity for these women, you know, and that's so awesome. So I think, you know, I never underestimate anybody. You can't with a record. It doesn't matter. I mean, even when Lindsey Gosselin beat me, you know, I mean, that's a whole other, that's my, you know, I have my reasons and my feelings, but based on it, she was 2-2. You know, she wasn't. You know, nobody knew. It wasn't. I didn't go into underestimating her. You know, for me, I fought the wrong fight, completely wrong fight, and I trained for the wrong fight.
Yeah.
But you know, you never know, and I'll take that one on the chin. You know what I mean? I know, but that's something. You know, you don't know what these girls come in with. You can't underestimate anybody. Well, and,
I'll say this. I think the fact that Meacham was able, she lost to Tori Nelson, but what's interesting is that, you know, she's another fighter, albeit, yeah, she's out of Arkansas and she's dropped a ton of bouts, but she's fought some pretty good opponents and she's a very aggressive fighter. So the reason is I go back to the fight coming up for Tori Nelson and against Keita Watkins is Watkins, again, she's one of those fighters where, you know, she's going to grind it out. I mean, look, she's just going to grind it out. Her fights go the full 6. They go the full 8. They've gone 4. She's been knocked out one time in her career, and she just got caught. She just got caught by Molly McConnell.
It happens.
Yeah, exactly. It happens. And, you know, I think when you have a fighter who's fighting in their hometown and they're fighting for a belt and you're on the road and you're a visitor, I think it juices you up a little more. I think it amps you up. I think the key to this one right off the bat is Keita Watkins has to set the tone. She's got to come out and she's got to pressure Tori Nelson. If she gets caught, she gets caught, but she's got to take the first couple rounds and she's got to get Tori Nelson thinking a little bit because
there's a confidence.
Yeah.
There's a confidence that goes into a fight, and every fighter You know, when you're the one coming in, it's all the, you know, it's such a mind game too.
Yeah.
How do you feel? You know everybody's gunning for you, and you know everybody's trying to knock you out. So are you a little bit like, okay, what do I got to do? Or are you like, I got this. Like, I don't care. Nobody's going to get in my way. It's about the mindset of a fighter, and every fighter's mindset is different. Every fighter's approach is different.
And listen, I think we would both agree. Sometimes a fighter gets overwhelmed by them. I'll give you a perfect example. The fight I did when Amanda Serrano fought Carla Torres. Carla Torres was coming off. That was her second fight back after, I believe, a year or two layoff. She came back. She fought Ronica Jeffrey. She won a WIBA belt. It was a vacant belt, but she won the belt. It was a split decision, but she kind of exposed Ronica. She was feeling pretty good about herself. So she comes in the ring. She's getting ready to take on Amanda. And the first thing I said, I remember on the air, was, quote, that if Carla wants to get out of this fight and make it a fight, she has to last. She's got to get through the first round without getting overwhelmed. And wouldn't you know, that's not what happened. And I just think sometimes a fighter can just, not for lack of talent, maybe they just get overwhelmed by that moment.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Or going in not expecting. Did she expect that? Did she not expect that? There's so many things. You know, for me personally, I always try to go in there with a blank mind. Like, completely. I don't expect anything. Because that's the one thing. I don't take so to any fighter. It's always the anticipation of the unknown, which is the first round.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen. You can pretty much dictate what's going to happen after that. It's like, okay, I got to fight this way. I got to fight that way. You know, it's also, you know, how you take punches, how you can, you know, do what you can see in there. It just takes so much that goes into play with it. But yeah, I mean, that's probably, that may very well be what happened. You know, but it's definitely a mind state, and it's definitely what you go in there with.
Yeah.
You know, I agree. Those are the people you have around you too. What are they telling you too, and how much of it are you listening to, and how much of it are you know about yourself? But that's experience. That comes with experience.
Two more quickies for you before I let you get out of here, and always appreciate some time again. Maureen Shea joining us. Double Jab Radio inside the Journeymen Boxing Studios. Rich Quinones here. Have you seen Amanda Serrano fight? And if so, overall thoughts on her? I think right now, pound for pound, she's an extremely dangerous fighter because of the fact that she jumps.
She's very strong. She's a very strong fighter. She's you know, she's gotten in there. She actually went overseas and won a title, which is, you know, and she knocked the girl out. I mean, that's, you know, she's gone out there. She's done what she has to do.
Yeah, Moderna. Yeah.
And, you know, she's even called me out, which is, you know, I'm flattered. But, you know.
I didn't know that. Listen, I wasn't setting you up. I did.
Believe me, let me tell you, Rich. Listen, Rich, if I can tell you how many, please, I have no, you know, I'm talking as an analyst right now. I don't think you're.
Do you, let me ask you something. Being around the sport as long as you had, and honestly, you are, I mean, it's a fact. You're one of the pioneers of female boxing. There's a handful of them, and they know who they are. You know, when the way social media is now, and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and this, that, the other thing, there are a bunch of female fighters who call each other out. And when I asked them, they said, "Look, the men can do it. Why can't I?" Do you even put your broadcaster journalist hat away for a moment as a fighter, as a boxer? Does that kind of piss you off? Does it tick you off? Do you say to yourself, you know, what have you done lately?
I think actually, you know, it used to. But then I realized, you know, I'm doing something right. You know, obviously they want to get into it with me because they think they're worthy enough to get in there with me. Yeah. So it's, you know, but you know, I have my own journey. I have my own path and what we're trying to do, we're trying to achieve. First of all, I'm going down in weight for the reason, and you know, I don't have to explain myself to anybody. Nobody knows why. I mean, it's become public whether they care to research it or not. The reason I was fighting so heavy in New York is because I was on various medications and I was struggling with depression. Now I walk around at 125 pounds. You know, I can fight at 118, 122. I'm stronger. I feel better at those weights. So why am I going to come up to fight somebody? You know, first I'm going to get to my place, and then maybe when I get down as far as we want to go, or wherever we are, wherever our opportunities are for us, I have my eye on my car. I'm going to do what I got to do, and then maybe later on, when I want to go up, I'll go up. I'm not going to go up to 130 pounds and drop that down to 122. I'm not going to play around like that. Yeah. You know, I have my, like I said, I have my goal. My team has our vision. We have our goal, and I stick to it. I don't get pissed at people. You know, I'm flattered, to be honest. You know, and she wouldn't be pound for pound if she wasn't asking to fight people like me. So she's doing what she's got to do. But you know, whether it happens or not, that's a totally different topic. But I think she's a very talented fighter. I think she's tough. I think she's a world champion. I have respect for her, and that's just what it is. I think that anybody she gets in there with, they have to be smart.
Yeah.
They have to be smart. They have to know what they're getting in there. She comes to fight. I mean, I've seen her fight. She goes in there with conviction. It's funny. I see a lot of myself in her, to be honest, and I think that's great. I think that's awesome.
Before I let you get out of here, right now you're the #1 challenger, IBF at 122, correct? So if that's the case, if you can divulge of any potential fights you might have, if you can't, not a problem. You know me, I will push until you say I can't tell you. That's what I do.
I wish I could. I was like, come on here and say, hey, this is gonna happen. Believe me. What's funny is that I'm sitting here and I was contemplating going down to see the Ronda Rousey open workout in the UFC because I'm like, that's awesome. They got the Invicta. The way that these girls are helping each other is so freaking awesome. With Ronda's having an open workout.
Yep.
They've got the Invicta fighters, Cyborg's fighting on another card, and then they've got and they're all doing it together. Like you go there, you get to see all of them train, and that's awesome. We need that. You know what I mean? We need that in the U.S. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make that happen. So the reason, I'm like I said, I got, I'm flattered whenever people call me a pioneer because I'm just trying to just fulfill my dream and my goal and, go out there and try to make that happen for us women. Try to push and try to get us to get some fights here in the U.S. and some TV time because we deserve it. That's why we're all going to Mexico, and it's kind of giving the U.S. public of getting to experience us and see us. Because there's so much. It's just it's like when the UFC happened, everyone was like, whoa, like it was just blown up. Same thing will happen with women's boxing once we get that TV time in the U.S. and once we get that exposure in the U.S. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I go through my days where I'm just like, damn, it's frustrating. That's frustrating. People call me out, I could care less about. That's what frustrates me. My goal is to make sure that happens, whether it's for me or people that are after me. That's got to happen because we deserve it.
No, listen, it's a great point, and I think female boxing is certainly it's on the way, it's on the rise. I'm still waiting for you and I to call some fights ringside. That's all I'm waiting for.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, that'd be so cool. We'd have so much fun.
Because the beauty is too, we might disagree, which would make for great content. And then I can turn around and be like, wait a second, who do you think you are? A former champ, a current champ? And then you can just you can just give me the stare down, and then we'll have to cut the commercial.
Well, it takes a lot to get me to think when I'm wrong. So, I gotta really be proven.
Well, listen.
I might have to end in a sparring session.
No, I might lose again. Listen, keep up the great work as always, and
it's always a pleasure.
look forward.
Thanks for having me.
Nah, thanks, Maureen. Look forward to seeing you down the road, and I know everyone can check you out. I know you're doing the stuff on Twitter, and you got the Facebook and everything like that, so they can certainly follow you.
Absolutely.
All right, Maureen, be well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, there you have it, a couple minutes with the original $1 Million Baby. Always great to catch up with Maureen Shea, and I always joke with her, if the boxing thing doesn't work out, she certainly has a career in broadcasting. She does an outstanding job breaking down boxing and breaking down female boxing. We told you there's a ton of female boxing this weekend in Mexico. We broke down some of those fights. We also talked a little bit about what's going on in a couple weeks down in Maryland with Tori Nelson. So, as always, keep it locked into JourneymanBoxing.com. And, of course, Double Jab Radio for all your female boxing, as well as your pro circuit and your amateur news as well. All right, we're going to start wrapping it up. Another edition of Double Jab Radio in the books. Don't forget, later on, probably later on Friday, we will certainly dissect some more female boxing. We'll see if we can tell you about what's going on the next couple weeks. Also, New Jersey Golden Gloves in effect. Starting Saturday, we will be out there covering the event, taking some great video and photos. And we'll also keep you updated on anything that's happening locally as well. All right, folks, as always, this edition of Double Jab Radio sponsored by our good friends at Casanova Boxing Gloves, Victory Boxing Gym, Tri-City Boxing, one of our newest sponsors, and, of course, the Atlantic City PAL. Everyone have a good Thursday night. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Double Jab Radio. As always, to our friends in Spain and Latin America listening to us online at www.journeymanboxing.com. Oh, mercy para nosotros, amigos que nos escuchan en España y América Latina. Gracias por tu tiempo. Follow us on Twitter, RichQ as well as my exclusive photographer, Shade Shagagi. Remember, it's not the destination, it's a journey you should enjoy. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you on Friday's edition of Double Jab Radio. Until then, we'll see you next time, ringside.